We are recording this, so if you have any questions, let us know, or if you want to go back to this, it should be available at a later time. I first want to turn it over to Nancy, just kind of tell you a brief introduction about the School of Education. Nancy.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is our third in a series of speaker sessions for our new incoming students. We are so glad for those of you who were able to join us today. We know this is going to be shared with a number of students afterwards. I want to thank you all for finding Loyola, exploring it with us, learning more about it. Our goal is that when you come onto campus this fall, this August, that you will feel like you already, belong here, which you do, and that you feel welcome here, which you are, and that you know a bit about how it works and about what to expect from your program. I would just say that if you have any questions after this, session today, do not be afraid to reach out. We're accessible. We answer email all the time. So anything that we can do to help you feel more comfortable and more at ease and more ready for the fall, just let us know. Other than that, enjoy these wonderful students who've made the time to be here today. They're wonderful. And I thank them again for being here, and enjoy the session.
All right, thanks so much, Nancy. So yeah, again, my name is Jake. I'm one of the senior admission counselors with Loyola. I'm also a proud School of Education alumni. So I'm always happy to beat the horn, if you will, for the School of Education. I do want to turn it over to our wonderful current students at Loyola. Just give a brief introduction to yourselves. And we're going to go and start with our senior, Claire. Claire, just tell us your name, where you're from, and your program, please.
Everyone, my name is Claire. I use she, her pronouns. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, so a little bit away. And I am in the secondary English program. So I teach high school English. I teach 9th graders right now. And yeah, I believe that was everything.
Awesome. All right. Maggie, same question and then your year, please.
Hey everyone, my name is Maggie. I am a junior right now. I'm from a suburb of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, so not too terribly far away. And I'm studying secondary education and English, and I also have a minor in special education.
Awesome. Victoria.
Hey, so I'm Victoria. I'm a sophomore, second year. I am also from a suburb of Milwaukee, actually. And I am an early childhood and special education major, and I have a minor in bilingual education.
Wonderful. Layla?
My name is Layla. I am a second year as well. I'm from Southern California. I've been in Southern California since we closed in March. I'm in early childhood special education. I'm also a part of the pre-occupational therapy program.
Awesome. And last but not least, Dia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dia, and I'm from Dallas. I'm a freshman, and I'm in the early childhood and special education program.
Awesome. Again, thank you all so much for being here. Really, for the next hour or so, this time is yours to ask any questions you might have about the program that you can get real answers from actual current Loyola students. So in the chat, in the bottom of the toolbar, if you have any questions, just go and put your questions in the chat and we'll try our best to answer them. One of my colleagues, Adam Schilling's in the background looking at questions as well. So we have more questions that are more logistics based or just like Loyola in general. He can try answering those questions for you as well. I do want to start a question for my sophomores and my freshmen. And that's, because you're more new in the program, you remember what it's like that first semester as an education major. Can you all just talk about what your first semester was like as an education major at Loyola? And Dia, since you still are experiencing your first year, let's start with you.
Yeah, so it was hard at the beginning, honestly, especially not being on campus, never being able to see campus, but I really felt welcomed and my classes were amazing and the professors were super understanding and encouraging, especially in the circumstances that we were all in and still are in. So, but I had a great time and I still am having a great time in all my classes.
Wonderful. Victoria, Layla, whoever wants to go next.
I can go next. Layla and I were actually in the same class for our first semester. So we've known each other for 2 years now. And it was an absolutely great experience. It was very scary. I'm sure most of you guys will experience the same thing when you start. It was really scary, especially going into classrooms right away, because it was pre-COVID. But the good thing is that all of the professors that I've had last year and online this year have been really supportive. They're all there for you and they actually like care. So even though it was really scary, everybody was there for support. Everybody was there to answer questions. So it felt scary only on the inside, but once we got into it, it was honestly not bad at all.
Awesome. Layla, is Victoria lying or is she telling the truth?
She's definitely telling the truth. She was for sure one of my first friends I made in the School of Education in general. And then we're still together because we're both in ECSE in the same grade. But going into it, I am not a very, like outgoing social person. So being in such a supportive and small group environment, the classes are usually pretty small for the School of Education, like 15 kids. And you get to create bonds with people, like I got to create a bond with Victoria that's obviously lasted. Like the first experience that you have in ECS, or not in ECSE, in the School of Ed in general, like you'll get to meet people from all types of majors, not just ECSE in education. And it's such a cool experience, like meeting people and like being around people who have a similar like passion and interest as you.
Yeah, and just from my own experience, I can acknowledge that. Like some of the friendships you make during these education programs are gonna be the friendships you keep forever. One of my closest friends, I lived with him up until a couple years ago, and now I'm the godfather to his dog. So like these connections won't be broken. So you have that. Another question for Dia, Victoria, and Layla. We actually have a student who's just asking about your favorite thing about the early childhood secondary education major. So, Layla, if you want to go first, since you went last first time.
My passion 110% like is in working with kids, young kids with special needs. And my favorite thing about the major is just having so many like specific opportunities that fall within what I'm interested in doing. Like there's not a lot of programs like the ECSE major here, and the doors that this like program is opening for me, to be like a kindergarten teacher, a preschool teacher, a special ed teacher, an early interventionist. Like there are so many options that I can do, like all within working with kids with special needs. It just makes me feel so like confident and excited to like teach.
Awesome. Victoria?
So this is actually the first semester that we are in early childhood special ed specific classes. So the first 3 semesters, you are in general classes with regular like elementary and secondary ed majors. So speaking on this semester only, I actually applied and entered Loyola as an elementary education major, and I switched to early childhood because I just like younger kids more. Coming from this perspective of someone who switched, I enjoy early childhood special ed more just because it's more inclusive, and I feel like you get a broader understanding of the development of children in a way that like you don't get so much from elementary. Not that the elementary program isn't good. I did it too. But I like it because you get to learn about development from a lot of different perspectives, and especially in preschool and kindergarten classrooms, most of the time they're blended classrooms anyway. So you'll have typically developing and non-typically developing children in the same classroom. So being able to know how to work with both children, both groups of children is really beneficial. So that would be my favorite part, I think.
Awesome. And Dia, anything you'd like to add? Like, what's your favorite part of your first year in the program?
Yeah, so honestly, my classes are, like Victoria said, they're pretty general at this point, but a lot of the professors do try to talk to you about your specific program as you're going through the first year. So that's been really helpful, like understanding like what I'm gonna be seeing in the future semesters. So kind of just looking up to that's like really exciting at this point.
Awesome. Thank you. So my next question, I want to throw to my junior and my senior. And the question is, how often are you in schools versus how often are you in college classes? And do you feel it's a good balance? And Maggie, let's start with you.
Okay. I think for me, it's been weird because I spent my first 3 semesters at Loyola with consistent field placements. And then obviously halfway through my sophomore year was when everything shut down. So for the first 3 semesters, you're in field placements really, really consistently, like pretty much. So for me, my education classes met twice a week. And for like, I'd say a solid 90% of those classes, I was in a school. We would be put into like some auditorium, like empty space to kind of go over content as a class. And then we were sent off in small groups to observe and interact with teachers in the classroom. So it was a really, really solid balance of content and experience.
Awesome. Claire?
Yeah, I mean, my field experience has also experienced a few interruptions, but I have to agree that you're pretty much consistently all of your ed classes will be at a site. You'll spend a debrief time at the beginning and end of what is your allotted like college course time meeting with your class, and then you'll spend most of the time in the classroom really doing hands-on work with whatever your sequence is focused on, be that like ESL work or behavioral work, whatever. Again, I had some interruptions. There was a strike and now the pandemic, but I would say you spend a very good amount of time in the actual field. And then a lot of the work is certainly outside of the classroom.
Awesome. And I want to keep with my secondary ed majors for a second here, because obviously with your secondary education major, you're required to have a second major in your specialization, which you've both chosen as English. How are you able to balance those two at the same time? Is being a double major in the education program, do you find it easy? Is it challenging? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, you know, you have to take a certain amount of credits anyways, and I've found that it really just ends up being just what you do with those extra credits. So I haven't found it to be too particularly demanding. I think it's certainly kind of an on and off switch. It's kind of like code switching different languages. Ed classes are structured so differently from all the other classes that you will take at Loyola. They have their own system completely. But I would say as long as you kind of think through everything you have to do and then remember that you also have your ed classes, you can stay on top of the work. It's certainly a challenge, but it's been doable.
Awesome. Maggie, would you agree?
I would. I think the best thing that you can do is just to start to work with your English advisor as well, like as early on as possible, because like Claire mentioned, like there's, X amount of classes that you have to take for your content major. But like with English specifically, there are classes that you can kind of like double dip requirements with. Like there's one you can check off like the multicultural requirement and, taking a class that focuses on like 1850 to like 1900 specific literature, and just working with your advisor to kind of be as like efficient with your classes as possible while still getting like the best experience possible.
Awesome. I'm going to throw back to my early childhood people. Amy had a question just about the course load in the early childhood special education program, and how do you stay on top of your work? So if you just kind of want to talk about how the program is a little bit, and then maybe some advice about how to make sure you're doing all the work properly. And Victoria, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'd love to. So in the early childhood special ed program, so it's actually a very small program. There are, I think, probably less than 30 people, like freshman to senior in the program currently. So it's very small. We're all pretty close. So there's one professor, his name is Dr. Kennedy. He's amazing. And he runs the sequence, the fourth semester, the one that we're in right now, as sophomores for early childhood, when we really like separate out from the elementary. And I would honestly say that the workload is not bad. It's pretty similar to the first 3 semesters when we were in the general education classes with all the other majors. And he's also a very understanding person. And in addition to that, he worked in early childhood education for like years and years before becoming a professor. So coming from the perspective of someone who's actually been there, he does really well about providing work that actually matters to your future. So I wouldn't say that I don't think I have any tips for staying on top of work because it's all pretty manageable in my opinion.
Awesome. Dia, as a current freshman, what advice could you give to your prospective incoming freshman?
Yeah, so for example, personally during high school, I procrastinated all the time, and senior year especially. So coming in first semester was I was on top of things because I knew like if I got behind even one class, like it was just gonna go downhill. So just staying on top of it and being motivated is like your best option. And I personally haven't gone like classes where professors are giving you busy work just for no reason, right? There's like all the work is like really helpful and it's helping you get to a certain point in either class. Like, so it's not like hard unless you don't keep up with it.
Yeah. Layla, anything to add?
I definitely have struggled with the workload a little bit more than Victoria has, and that's okay. It's a lot. I deal with like time changes and stuff like that, which make it a little bit more difficult. But Dr. Kennedy, especially, and most of the other teachers I've experienced are very, very good at making calendars and sticking to them. So you know what to expect every single class and you know what to do every single class. And every single professor I've come into has been very like, kind. And if you need extra help or extra time, they're always very understanding about that. But in terms of like staying on top of things, just making sure that like you have that calendar. And a lot of the work we experience as sophomores in ECSC is collaborative based. So you do a lot of partner work and group work. So making sure that you're in good communication with the people you're working with in order to get stuff done properly and on time is really helpful as well.
Awesome. Thank you. So my next question is for everybody. You're here to talk about our amazing education program, but obviously your time at Loyola is not just going to be in a classroom, either learning a lesson or teaching a lesson. Do you still feel that you're able to have a student life on campus outside your education classes? And what else are you involved in? And whoever wants to start can go ahead.
I can start.
Oh, good.
Sorry. I definitely do feel like you can have an outside life. I have been teaching swim to little kids for like 4 years now, and I'm able to work 20 to 30 hours every week if I properly manage my schoolwork. And I have friends and I hang out with friends on the weekend. But if you're able to manage it, you can totally like live your life the way you want to while being successful in this major.
Claire, go ahead.
Yeah. So I have worked every semester. I work a side job at Marshall's. So I've been able to do that and manage all of my coursework. I also would just plug that the secondary program and potentially middle years, I actually don't know, is one of the only programs that's also compatible with studying abroad. So I studied abroad at the Loyola Vietnam Center, which was incredible. And I also got teaching experience there. I taught English to Vietnamese people with disabilities. So I was able to put that on my resume, and that was insanely helpful in doing this job hunt come senior year. So that's definitely an opportunity. It's not compatible with all the programs yet. So you'd have to kind of do the research on that. I know it is with secondary, but so I did that. I'm also a member, like I am with campus ministry. I do a lot of retreats. I lead retreats. I just had one this weekend. So yeah, there's plenty of time it's really all about just planning and making sure you get your coursework done and then planning around it.
Claire, how many banh mi sandwiches did you have when you were in Vietnam?
A good amount. I'm actually Vietnamese, so it wasn't anything new to me. So I have them a lot with my family. I would have them for breakfast pretty often because they're light.
Everyone, banh mi sandwiches are some of the best sandwiches on the face of the planet. Definitely try them. Who else would like to go next?
I can jump in. I just want to echo like pretty much everything that everybody's been saying. Like if you manage your time correctly and appropriately, like you can totally have like a regular, college experience. Like I've also worked every semester so far. And in the interest of also plugging things, I'm the president of the Loyola Future Teachers Club. I've been involved since I was a freshman every semester. And like that's just another really good way to kind of get your feet a little bit more wet in the SOE and meet people in different years and different content areas. It's a really good time. So if you come to Loyola, please join it.
Very nice low key plug there, Maggie. Yeah, subtle. Victoria, Dia, anything else you want to add to that?
I would just say, like they all were saying, time management, but besides that, I haven't been on campus, so I would think that classes would be a lot harder online and it would just take too much time kind of staying on top of things, but it actually isn't. Like I volunteer on my church all week and I hang out with friends on the weekends and there's plenty of time to do everything, even being at home.
Awesome. Thank you. So my next question is just going to be kind of talking about the field experience of the education program. And what I liked when I was a student, I'm sure you all liked it as well, is that you're never really thrown into the deep end. It's a progression over your 4 years. So by the time you're actually in the classroom student teaching, you're prepared. So Claire, I was just kind of hoping if you could run through your experiences from freshman year to senior year, and then Maggie, if you can jump in and talk about that as well.
Yeah. So your freshman year, your first year, you kind of are doing, and this is what I did, so I don't know if it's changed, but your first year, you're doing a lot of informal education. So first semester, you spend a lot of time in museums and other forms of informal instruction. And then a couple schools here and there, I believe. And then the next semester, you do a lot of work with affirming identity and finding your own identity and discovering how identity politics plays into your role as a teacher. My first semester of my sophomore year, I did a lot of work with behavior. So I tracked a student's behavior through a whole semester and made a plan for them. It was really nice. We got to speak with the student, and that was actually really helpful. That has become very helpful now as I'm student teaching. Then I had to break my second semester because I was abroad. And then your junior year is when you really get into the classroom and you start teaching. So I had some lessons that I taught in my junior year, but then there was a strike, so we did not teach anymore. And then I was in your sequence 6, which is second semester junior year. And this is all like if you're on track 4 years, but you don't teach quite as much. It's mostly ed TPA preparation, but then you get to like be in the classroom with a teacher. And because you're like so far in the program, a lot of times the teacher in the classroom will just hand off some responsibilities. That was also interrupted by the pandemic. And now I am then I went to sequence 7, which is half student teaching, half coursework. And now I am full-blown student teaching. So I would say, I don't know if you don't totally get thrown into the water. I think I did sort of, you do sort of flip a switch between theory and then practice, but your professors are there to really guide you in that switch. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Maggie, do you want to maybe talk about at TPA since you are starting it this year? Is that right?
So my professor hasn't really talked about ed TPA all that much. I think COVID has just kind of like thrown a wrench in all of that stuff, but I'm anticipating getting stuff with that in the fall. But one thing that I wanted to add is first semester of your freshman year, you spend time in all types of classrooms. Like I was put in a kindergarten classroom first initially, which was a shock to the system. But it's really nice just kind of bouncing around different types of classrooms. And for me, it like really affirmed, okay, yes, like I do want to work with high school students. I had a friend who was originally elementary ed, and then she ended up switching to middle grades because she was like, I like little older children. So you kind of it kind of just helps you like affirm your own identity as a teacher and like confirm, you know, that yes, this is what I want to do with my career.
Awesome, thank you. So yeah, EdTPA, just real quick, that's essentially a year-long project that will kind of monitor your effect as a teacher. It's almost like the education capstone. It's something that you'll all go through your senior year, and your professor is gonna be there to help you with that as well. Maggie, you bring up a good point where like your first year, you're in all sorts of different settings. Also, you go on field trips. So if you all thought that field trips ended at like 8th grade, happen again in 13th grade. But Victoria, you mentioned that you started out an elementary education major and then switched over to early childhood special ed. So as someone who utilized that year of kind of learning what they wanted to teach, how did you come about realizing what you wanted to teach?
Okay, so I was actually really lucky in that during my first and second semesters in the ed program, so when I was a freshman in my first semester, I was in one high school classroom for literally one day. It was just a one-day observation, that was it. And it did, like Maggie just said, affirm that I knew I could never be a high school teacher. It was just not gonna work. And then luckily all of the classrooms that I was in from that point on were elementary grades, so like 5th grade and younger. And from what I understand, the elementary license goes from kindergarten to 6th grade, I think. And I was in a 3rd grade and a 5th grade classroom different times. And I just didn't like the older kids. I mean, they're great, they're fun, but I just love little kids. I think they're so much better. And then I was in a kindergarten classroom and then a preschool classroom right after. And I was like, yeah, this is just much more me. And so the early childhood special ed degree goes from birth. So you could work in a preschool or daycare center up to 2nd grade. And that was just more of what I wanted to do. So I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and focus on that. So I don't spend all this time learning about older kids that I know I'm never going to work with.
Awesome, thank you. Maggie, I'm gonna help you plug the Future Teachers Club. Can you talk a little bit more about it? Like, what do you all do? Is there programming involved? When do you all meet?
Yeah, so we meet about once a month, sometimes like 2 to 3 times a month, just depending on if we have any like social events or like volunteer work. We actually recently transitioned from being a registered student organization to being a student sponsored organization. I think that's what SSO stands for. And I worked really, really closely with Dean Goldberger to make that transition happen. And all that means really is that we're kind of now nestled within the SOE. So we're working a little bit more closely with them. Like this week, for example, I'm going to plug something else. We have a new teacher alumni panel for rising, potential freshmen and current students as well. We have a group of 4 panelists ranging in content areas, and they're just going to chat with us about their experiences at Loyola and in the field. So if you're not already registered for that, let me know. I'd love to help get you involved. But we really just kind of like try to have a really solid community of educators and future educators where like we can kind of come together and like talk through like current events that are happening that pertain to education, things that are really, really working for us within the TLSC program and Loyola as a whole. And just like, I just can't stress community enough because that's really what it's meant to be.
Awesome, thank you. So, we've already kind of talked about this a little bit, like your cohort really becomes your Loyola family. So can you talk about how one of your classmates really helped you with a project or with a lesson plan that you were working on, or just the camaraderie, just kind of reinstill that like this program is all about community, like Maggie said. And anyone can go.
Yeah, I'll say the program kind of works in a way where first you have you're mixed with everyone, and then you move up, and then like Victoria said, you eventually just end up with your content area for secondary. You start with everyone, and then you move to just secondary, but all content levels, and then you move to just your content area with middle grades. So you merge with middle grades. Middle grades English, for example, is who I also am with. But at the same time, like you know everyone in the program really. I mean, you've seen each other's faces. You take a lot of the same electives. Like there's a lot of philosophy of education is one where like I see all kinds of grades outside of the ed program or all kinds of content areas. And there are 4 of us now at my student teaching site. And when we see each other, it's just like, it's so much fun. It's so much fun to be with your friends, student teaching. And I would say I have some of my best friends that I've met at Loyola that have come directly from my program and from my cohort in particular, because you just end up spending time with people who have very similar values to you. They care about the same kind of thing and they want to do the same kind of thing, and it ends up making connections really, really easy and fruitful. So,
Layla, how about you?
Well, there's my class and I'm our sequence, me and Victoria's sequence, we're sequence 4, right? Our class is pretty small. I think there's 6 or 7 other girls. So we're pretty small and we do a lot of partner and 3-person group projects. And a lot of the times we pick them and I do end up doing them with Victoria. And when you have a consistent partner and someone who's like consistently your friend, it's so nice to have those kind of relationships in a work relationship as well, because it's like at this point, both me and Victoria know how each other work, know how we can support each other in the things we do, and we're going to continue this relationship for several years. You know, we have 2 more years in the program, and so having consistent relationships where you can trust and rely on someone and they can trust and rely on you just makes your like education so much more fun and so much easier.
Awesome, thank you. Just a real quick thing on study abroad. I know Claire talked about it. Just to clarify, bilingual education and secondary education are able to study abroad during the school year. Most other SOE students will utilize our Rome program over the summer at the John Felice Rome Center. That's when I did my study abroad. I spent a summer in Europe, which, you know, there are worse places to spend summer. Going kind of back to the community, Dia, I think you have a really unique experience because your entire education so far at Loyola has been online. So how were you able to kind of interact with your classmates in the education program?
Yeah, so at first I really thought it would be hard, and not being on campus wouldn't allow me to make friendships and like be a part of that community. But that was not the case at all. These professors were so understanding and they knew that it was our first year and we weren't getting that same experience. So all of my professors have made sure to kind of give us time to kind of get to know each other, whether that be group projects or breakout rooms and just talking to one another. And so, especially in my education classes, my professors, like we did group projects and we would kind of work with people that were also in our major. So I've worked with 2 other girls that are also doing early childhood and special education for a few projects now. And so just like Victoria was saying, and like once you're working with everyone, like you kind of become a group of friends. So like I can say like, yeah, those 2 people and I, like we've been friends, like we understand each other and we can lean on each other when we need help with something. And so that's not the case as when I was coming in, but you totally get that sense of community and make those friendships even online.
How excited are you to see those friends in real life for the first time?
Very excited. Very excited.
Awesome. All right. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. A few more questions for my students who have actually been able to go out into the classroom. So again, probably more towards Maggie and Claire. Can you just kind of talk about how you got to the different classrooms? Obviously, Layla or Victoria, if you have some thoughts on that as well. Like, how did you get there? Did you go as a group? Different things like that.
You have to commute. So that is, I forgot about that. That is really probably one of the most time-consuming parts of the program. There will be sites you're placed at that are an hour drive away. So you may have to Uber, you may have to split an Uber, you'll have to find a friend who's a commuter, you'll have to take the train. Personally, I've taken the train everywhere. I think my longest commute is like an hour and a half every morning, like 3 days a week. So yeah, I mean, and it kind of depends if you have friends that have cars, maybe they'll take you. I personally would travel alone just because like I lived alone. But yeah, you do have to commute.
Great. Anyone have anything to add?
Yeah, commuting is, it's a fun time. Dress in layers. But what I found for me was it worked really well just to kind of, I went with the same group of girls to my, I think it was my sequence 3 placement. There was a bus stop that we all met at like, I don't know, like 7:30 in the morning, and we all had our coffee and we got on and we would go together. And then that commute time was honestly, despite the fact that it was like 7:30 in the morning, it was really fun because like we're all in the same boat. Like we all know what's going on. None of us are happy that we're on a bus at 7:30 in the morning, but like we get to go hang out in classrooms. Like it's exciting.
Yeah. I love rolling up with just my squad of 8 other teachers to a middle school, just ready to change the world. So I feel that. Great. A couple more questions for you all. Let's see, what do I want to ask next? Yeah, so for those who have been in a classroom, what would you say has been your most challenging experience with a student, with a fellow teacher? What's your most challenging experience?
For me, so sequence 3, you spend like half the semester focusing on behavior, and then the other half is when you start to get into like your ESL endorsement. And for that ESL aspect of the class, you work one-on-one with a student who is an English language learner, and you design and give writing tests and speaking tests and reading tests. And the student that I was assigned to hated me and like explicitly told me that he did not want to work with me. So that just kind of forced me to like deal with that. And I had to work with my cooperating teacher to figure out next steps. I ended up just working with another student, but that, yeah, was the time.
Sure. Well, Maggie, let me ask you this. What was your most rewarding experience, if that was your most challenging?
I think it was getting to work with the new student that I was paired with, because she was really into like reading and history, and like once I got her talking, she would talk for like 15-20 minutes nonstop, and it was just so exciting to like hear her talk about her experiences and how vastly different they were from my own. And I learned so much from this like teeny tiny little 11-year-old.
Awesome. Claire, did I see you unmute yourself, or did you have a challenging experience or a rewarding experience you wanted to talk about?
I've had a fair share of challenging experiences. I think one of the funkiest things about constantly being in a site placement is a little bit of the way that power dynamics play in a classroom. There's a lot, this could be a whole thesis, and I'm sure it is for someone. But there's a way that power works in a classroom where there's a teacher and then there's students, and having a young college student or an old college student in a classroom taking over in any really capacity can sometimes be very challenging. I've had issues where students hate their teacher, and so they've asked me to sign their permission slip, and I'm like, I really can't do that. Or situations where many times have been mistaken as a student, or, just that plays out in so many different ways. I think that's something that you just learn to navigate and be really openly communicative about. And then, of course, unique just to student teaching, I've had lots of challenging experiences, but that's probably a whole different panel. So,
Well, what about your most rewarding experience so far?
oh, there's been plenty as well. I mean, they certainly balance out. I don't know. Anytime you get through to a kid, it's a wonderful, wonderful feeling.
Absolutely. Well, I have a few more questions I want to ask you all. For my students who are watching this panel, if you have any of your last questions, make sure you put those in the chat, because I would hate to end early and you not be able to get your question out there. But do you all think that Loyola's education curriculum is preparing you to teach after graduation?
Up to this point, so I'm halfway through the education program now. Our TLSC classes just ended. That's a really good thing. They end at week 12 instead of week 16, so you get a few weeks of a break, everyone. But up to this point, I do feel like they have, especially if you are planning on staying in the Chicagoland area, or if you're planning on teaching in another big city that's very diverse. This program covers a lot of things. It covers, how to work with emergent bilingual students. It covers how to work with children with behavioral problems, children with special needs. It covers a lot of things that I think are really important for all teachers to know, regardless of what your focus is in the education program. So I would say that definitely without a doubt, and that's the biggest reason why I chose this program, that it prepares you for so many things that you're going to experience as a teacher, in addition to giving you that like extra classroom time that a lot of other colleges don't give. It just provides you with like so many more opportunities to learn how to be a teacher.
Awesome. Anyone have anything to add?
I would say for the parts that it does not cover, it certainly opens up a space of communication for working that out. I think there have been times where I've felt underprepared, or just like programs were maybe structured in a certain way. And I've always had professors reach out and say, how can we do this better? That's part of what's great about being taught by teachers, because they know how to reassess. And I think this program has gone through quite a few different changes. And so I think that they're always trying to make it better. So I think for what it may not give you, it will give you the opportunity to ask for it.
Awesome. Well, my last question, which is for everybody, and it's probably the most important question, and that's, why did you choose Loyola, and why did you choose Loyola School of Education? And Dia, let's go and start with you on this one.
Yeah, so I've had a little experience teaching early childhood in my church, so I knew that I wanted to work with kids and wanted to go through this path. And I chose Loyola because of the field experience. Even though I haven't gone that yet, from everything I've been hearing, I know that that's going to give me the opportunity to kind of get to where I want to go. And in general, I really enjoyed how small class sizes were at Loyola. I think that just allowed me to be able to ask questions and reach out to professors, because I'm kind of like, I'm not extremely social and like good with big settings. So being in that small setting and really being able to communicate with classmates and the professor in class was really helpful.
Awesome. Leila, how about you?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually did not apply to Loyola as an education major. I applied as an psychology major, pre-occupational therapy. My goal was to become an occupational therapist, which is basically, if you don't know, it's like physical therapy for your brain for little kids. And I wanted to work in public schools, little kids. I have an older sister who goes to Northwestern, so I have family in Chicago. So that's kind of one of the reasons that drew me. And then I was actually looking at, once I decided to become the education major, I actually looked into several different education programs and ultimately decided that I was already in the best place I could be for education. Especially if you're looking for ECSE, it's kind of a little bit niche in the program we're in specifically, and it's such a great program for you to be in if you're looking to work with kids in this age group. So that's for sure. So much of like, the school being a smaller school, it being in Chicago and having such a great program all like factor into everything.
Awesome. Victoria.
Yes. So I knew that I was going to go to Chicago for school. It was like my one stipulation. I was like, I gotta go to Chicago. So I considered U Chicago. I didn't really like their education program. I had gotten probably like a million emails from Loyola and telling me that I should apply, I should come to campus. So I was like, what the heck? Like, the worst that can happen is I don't like it. I fell in love. with the campus, with, the whole atmosphere being here. And even before looking into the education program, I was like, yeah, I think this is definitely where I'm going to end up. And after I looked into the education program, the field experience, the professors who work here, and I came to a similar panel, I think it was a YouTube video, of like some people talking about Loyola, and I was like, yes, this is definitely where I want to end up. And obviously this isn't something that I knew before I came to Loyola, but like Claire said, learning from people that were teachers makes it a lot more valuable and makes the education that you're getting that much more like important to your future work as a teacher. And I think that if I was ever going to consider switching schools, which I don't think I ever would, that would be the most important thing, because it really makes the education like 10 times better because you're learning from people who have done it.
Awesome. Maggie.
Yeah, so I visited Loyola 3 times before I committed here because I apparently couldn't stay away. I don't know. There was, similar to Victoria, like the energy just kind of like fit for me. And it took a minute to realize that, but like once I did, I'm here. So but one of the biggest things for me was the field experience and the fact that they pop you into the classroom within, I think, the first like 3-4 weeks of freshman year. A lot of the other colleges that I looked at, they're like, oh yeah, like you can do volunteer work, first semester of your freshman year, or I won't name names, but for the first like 2 years of your college career. And I have friends that are also education majors that are scattered throughout a few other colleges. And I'm the only one that's been in the classroom since freshman year. And that is just such a big reason why I love the SOE here.
Awesome. And Claire, last but certainly not least, as you're walking across that virtual graduation stage in a couple weeks, why did you decide to choose Loyola?
Yeah, something very important to me that no one has touched on yet is its focus on social justice education and urban education. I wanted to teach in a city, and I wanted to teach in a program that put social justice at the really center of everything that you do. And we kind of have this joke in the program that like you'll write an essay about what it means to be a social justice educator, like probably every semester, and you do. And it does get old, but that's really why I chose to come here. And so I really shouldn't complain. But it's the most important thing to me. The field experience was a cherry on top, really. But the fact that the field experience was made in mind of the students that were being served. And I really just kind of searched like best education programs on Google and found it, and then found that it was so focused on social justice and the field experience. And I think I seriously don't even remember making the decision. Like I'm here now. So I don't remember. It was a while ago, but I'm here and I'm glad that I'm here.
Don't worry, Claire. I was a freshman in 2011. I still feel like I just moved into Mertz Hall, so I feel that on that. But I want to thank you all so very much for joining us today. Especially, I think Claire, I think she had a full day of student teaching before she did this. So a huge shout out to all of you for joining us today, taking time out of your very busy schedules right before finals to come and talk with our prospective students about why our education program is so amazing. So for all of my prospective students out there, thank you all so much for joining us today. As Nancy said, if you have questions, feel free to ask. In the chat, I'm going to put education's email, which is just education@luc.edu. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to them. If you have admission questions, you're more than welcome to email us at admission@luc.edu, and we'll be more than happy to answer those questions. So again, to my current students, thank you so much for being here. Good luck with the rest of the semester. And for all my prospective students, we have a couple more weeks before you have to make your decision. So if you have any questions, reach out to us. Good luck in your college decision-making process. And everyone have a great day. And above all else, go Blurs. Have a great day, everybody.